Good morning, everybody. Good morning. What a remarkable occasion this is for the Rennie Center to be critical friends for this, in both senses of the term, for this state and this community to think how it can move itself forward after 10 years or more of ascending to astonishing success internationally by almost any indicator you can set out before us. In the most fabulous venue to do this, which is the historic Omni Parker Hotel, right across the road from America's first public school, a place where the Kennedys had their bachelor parties. Lots of too much information there. Where Charles Dickens practiced his characters in the mirror, and where Malcolm X was a busboy. This is, you can probably feel all of this all around you. This is the culture of who we are and the history of what we have become. I am just the warm-up act before the main event this morning. What often happens is the other way around, which is the big people come on, the people in policy, the people in ministries, the people in governments, and all the cameras come in the room and follow them, and then I get up to speak afterwards. And so I've spent a lot of my career watching the rear ends of government people leave the room. But I'm going to stay, so you're not going to see my rear end this morning. So, what do we have to talk about? I am Andy Hargreaves from the Lynch School of Education at Boston College. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Hargreaves BC, my class who do educational change with me know we're doing this morning. We also have a hashtag that we connect the class to the things going on outside, connect those to the class. So we're doing education in real time with real issues that affect everybody. So please tweet away, unless I say, don't tweet this. And if you would respect that, that would be terrific. So, where are we? If we look at all the indicators nationally, here's the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It shows Massachusetts does extraordinarily well. And I'm sure a lot of the data this year will, when they come out, will show pretty much the same thing. The thing I want to point out after this great search, because this was not always the case. The thing to point out is three things. One is we're doing well. It's a terrific platform to move on from. Two, the differences between the states in New England are actually rather small. It's a few number, if you'd had a bad week or a few key people had been away when those assessments were taken, we could have been down a place rather than up a place. When you get into the top zone, the most important thing is staying in the top zone. It's not exactly whether you're 1, 2, 3, or 4, give or take a few points within that. And you don't want to be expending your energy, like disproportionate amounts of your energy, as exactly where you are in the top 4. So the first thing is we've achieved a lot. Do we want to keep doing the same thing to sweat a couple of more points out of those numbers? Or do we want to say, if this was a stock market, let's hold here, and let's buy something else to put alongside that? The second is, when you're in a top set, look at the other people around you. These states are different states, different cultures, different politics, different strategies. Some have charter schools, some don't. They have different turnaround strategies. So as well as having friendly rivalry, and there's nothing wrong with that, as well as having friendly rivalry, what can we actively learn from each other by working together that would help all the students and all the children of New England? What can we learn from each other, and what can we learn from countries elsewhere? And what are some of the areas we're doing less well in that we need to pay attention to? And one of those are the indicators like the Kids Count Index for child well-being. We'll see here that we're doing well overall, and we're doing especially well educationally, but there are other areas economically, and particularly in terms of family and community issues, those things that traditionally affect about 70% of students' achievement, but which we already have strategies for in this state, like City Connects, to address them, is how to think, how to push that harder so that we're looking at achievement and we're looking at well-being. Not because we're bored with achievement, but actually because they support each other over time. I'm not sure what the equation is, but pay attention to well-being, you'll get achievement. Pay attention to achievement, and to some extent, that will also help well-being because it builds self-confidence. So we're doing some things well, and there's other things that we need to look at and people that we need to learn from. This is the act of benchmarking. But the point of benchmarking, this is what I used to do when I was a student, surveying sewers, their heights above sea level and their depth underground in a northern mill town in England. So we used to go down like 40 feet into the depths, and then you'd hear a noise in the distance and something would come past. It was a bit like central government policy. You could hear, and then through it would come a little later on. The point of benchmarking is not to push higher. The point of benchmarking is to figure out where you are in relation to everybody else, to find your position, and then to learn from that. And you need other people to know where your position is, and it's a point of learning, not a point of pushing higher and higher. So in a book a couple of years ago with my colleague Dennis Shirley, The Global Fourth Way, we tried to address these issues by looking at high-performing systems around the world directly. There are some documents that are very influential on this. People write about countries they've never been to, haven't visited, know nothing about, but they write with complete and unambiguous authority anyway. And we thought it might help actually to go to those countries and to study them. So we went with OECD and with other organizations as well. And we said basically there are 4 ways of educational change over history. These are very fast. The first was we give you the money and you do what you want. And you get a lot of innovation, but not a lot of coherence. The second is we don't give you as much money and you do as you're told. And we make you compete about doing what you're told to do at the same time. Then the third way was invented by Bill Clinton, Tony Blair, Gerhard Schroeder, and this was sort of between and beyond the first and the two, and roughly summed up it means you do what you want provided you do as you're told. And you'll know some school districts that sort of operate a bit like that at the moment. So what did we say the fourth way was? Well, the fourth way, one way of thinking about it, and we've revised this since the book, is a bit like this. You need to think about 4 things when we're engaged in change. What is your learning? What are your outcomes? What do you want in terms of children's development, achievement, and progress? What do you want for your students? To do that in the bottom right, you need to pay attention to, and I'll say, by the way, in the middle, we need to think the current mission is about achievement, and we need to be addressing other things as well as achievement in terms of learning, not instead of, but as well, and one of those is well-being. The second is how do you build the capacity of the teaching force to do that? Here we talk about human capital, which is putting the right teachers and the right principals in the right places. But the evidence I'll come back to is pretty compelling that if you address human capital alone, you'll have limited impact. Social capital, how you get people to work together, is the huge value added on the human capital argument. So it's not about getting good people and getting rid of bad people. It's the predominant one is how you get people to work together. By the way, the business community doesn't like professional capital because it has the word professional in it. And my union colleagues like Randy Weingarten don't like it because it has the word capital in it, because unions have a bit of a historic problem with the word capital. But lots of people are using the book, including unions and governments and so on. So we think we're making some headway with this idea of professional capital. Then you need, at the top, you need a theory of leadership about how to pull your people together. We have many theories of leadership. Some of these are leading to the nonsense where principals are spending 60% of their time actually observing individuals in classrooms in order to decide whether they're up to the job or not, which is taking away their time to work with their communities to build that social capital that will make more teachers more effective and become good instructional leaders themselves. So Uplifting Leadership, which is this book, where we looked at unusually high performance in business, sport, and education, is simply this. Uplifting leadership means uplifting the people you serve in terms of their opportunities and quality of life by uplifting the people who serve them. Uplifting the people we serve by uplifting the people who serve them. We have some strategies, particularly the no excuses movement in schools, which is about uplifting the people we serve by browbeating the people who serve them. And we also have strategies to uplift the people who do the serving, the teaching profession, the education profession, but with insufficient clarity, focus, and indeed urgency about results. So either one of them alone are insufficient. It's the two together, uplifting the people we serve through the people who serve them, that is the big sweet spot we should be striving for. And then down in the bottom left is you need a theory of what you're looking for, a theory of what you do about the profession and others in partnership who serve them, a theory of leadership about how to bring that about, and then a theory of change. And we've had 10 years focusing a lot on improvement here, which means making existing things better and getting performance to be higher. And we've begun to think in the last couple of years a lot more explicitly about innovation. So the issue is how do we get innovation and improvement, not innovation instead of improvement, and that's another theme that I will come along to. So this was the global fourth way. And then backing onto that is this idea of uplifting leadership, leading the right things for the right reasons in the right way. When we put these two things together, and having had a sneak peek of the embargoed report, which is great, and I'm not going to give anything away, but you're going to be really interested in this. And parts of it I will not talk about. Indeed, none of it I will talk about explicitly. You'll only see that in retrospect. Here's 6 ideas about where the state might move forward, given what I've set out so far and what I've seen from Chad and the Rennie Center. First is, like John Cotter, who invented the term sense of urgency, we need not to treat sense of urgency as a feeling of panic, but sense of urgency as the avoidance of a negative thing, as a crisis that we have to avert. But sense of urgency as a bold opportunity we cannot afford to miss. A bold opportunity. We studied Fiat Motors as one of our business cases. We went to Turin. Their bold opportunity was imposing small energy efficient cars on the North American market, just after they'd gone through 4 straight years in the red and they had no dealerships in North America. That was their bold opportunity. When Finland had 19% unemployment in 1992, its bold opportunity was to become the world's leading knowledge economy, where its skills would be so advanced they could not be bought anywhere else, and it will be a high-skill, high-wage economy. The question is, what is Massachusetts's bold opportunity now? And the current mission statement says, the mission, I have to take my glasses off so you can tell how old I am. And they're bifocals, which also shows I'm incompetent. The mission of the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education is to strengthen the Commonwealth's public ed system so that every student is prepared to succeed in post-secondary ed, compete in the global economy, and understand the rights and responsibilities of American citizens, and in so doing, to close all proficiency gaps. Well, I don't think any of us would disagree with that, but it wouldn't have us beating down the doors to get inside here. So what is the new bold opportunity? What's the new bold vision? We have a magnificent history of innovation in this state. I mean, a fabulous history of innovation. There's actually an innovation walk that you can take within past MIT and so on. So if I were to rebrand this state and produce a new license plate, I'd simply call it the state of learning. The state of learning. There's more universities per head of population here geographically than anywhere else in the world. It's a state of learning. We have a public education system that is as successful as the highest performing countries in the world. It's a state of learning. And we're not satisfied, and we shouldn't be satisfied. And we want to push on, and we want to push out. And that is the best state of learning of all those three. Second, I was going to tell you about Ontario in Canada, where I'm the Premier's advisor at the moment on education. There are 4 of us, and in fact it appears I am doing. But to give you a sense, just to give you a sense, after doing what you've done over 7 years, raising literacy scores, improving high school graduation dramatically, not so successful in math, what is the goal of this Premier? This Premier's background is in Indigenous education and communities, and is the only, to my knowledge, openly gay leader at that level in North America of a province of 13 million people, so cares strongly about school climate, safety, anti-bullying, and so on. So what is their vision that we're helping her to achieve? Excellence broadly defined, to include arts, to include 21st century skills, to include innovation, as well as STEM, as well as, not instead, but as well as STEM, literacy, math. To ensure equity, including for Indigenous Native Canadian communities, including for special education students with highly inclusive environments. To promote well-being, physical and mental health for all students as an outcome for its own sake, as well as its impact on achievement, and to maintain public confidence. This is one idea. It's not your idea. Every place should have its own. But it's one idea. Second, I mentioned this before, we need to move from human capital to social capital. The key study that Michael Fullen and I talk about in our book Professional Capital is by Caroliana, business professor from Pittsburgh, who looked at 130 elementary schools in New York City, looked at their grade 5 math achievement, and did measures of the human capital of their teachers, their quality, their skills, their qualifications, observations of their effectiveness, and also at measures of their social capital, levels of trust, degrees of collaboration with their colleagues around them. And what's true of both is that both human capital and social capital impact student achievement. If you get better people, you get better achievement. But if you have to choose, social capital raises human capital, which means whoever you've got, get them to work together, they'll get better. But human capital doesn't raise social capital. Have poor leadership, weak communities, divided environments where people are against each other or indifferent to each other, and better human capital will not lift the performance. So we need to think more about social capital. We need to think about things like City Connects and the 65 schools across America that now deals with tailor-made programs for students, connecting them to their communities and to partners who can help them. We need to find better ways for teachers to work with each other, and in a second I'll say schools to work with each other as well, because human capital is a key part of the Lawrence strategy, which is highly praised all over the state and the country. But I suspect that a strategy which is focused on replacing 45% of your teachers, in some cases with other teachers, getting rid of bad people with good people, is not sustainable or scalable on any large-term basis. And we have to, the successful systems we study put most of their energy into building leadership and capability among the people they've already got, and then add a bit from the outside to enhance that. And a more scalable and sustainable strategy that would work in Fall River, that would work in Springfield, that would work in all parts of this state, it needs to pay more attention, I believe, to social as well as human capital. But a report by Boston Consulting just a couple of weeks ago, sponsored by the Gates Foundation, showed these findings. Amongst teachers in particular and other educators, 45%, there was a net 45% dissatisfaction with professional learning communities. Almost half hate them. Almost half dislike professional learning communities. But among the providers, including the school system people, 3/4 think that's where they most need to invest their money and do more of it. People want to do more of what other people are hating. Does this mean there's policy for you? Does this mean we should all go back in our boxes, back in our egg crates, back in our silos, separate from each other? Should we do what New York City did yesterday, which is to abandon all its networks? Say the networks aren't working, so we'll have vertical hierarchical accountability instead. Lateral networks aren't working. Well, the answer is the networks are insufficiently robust. We have a weak sort of 1970s Woodstock experience of networks, which is about sharing practice and moving it around, or as one of my students at Boston College once put it, drooling over each other's dioramas. And don't tweet that, okay? So it's about what we share and how we share it. With the OECD in Wales last year, 3 minutes, my God. With the OECD in Wales last year, we found that we did a review of the Welsh educational system. They trained every school in professional learning communities. They had no focus and they had no follow-up, so they collapsed. It was a nationally ineffective strategy, even though every school had been trained in them. And we've been in other places where professional learning communities become places where you have to sit down on small chairs every day and look at data together on spreadsheets, because you're forced to collaborate on the things you're made to collaborate on, rather than on, say, planning curriculum, observing each other's practice, figuring out how to improve together. So we don't want do-as-you-like professional learning communities, and we don't want do-as-you're-told professional learning communities. We've got to find, through leadership, that sweet spot in between. And we've got to do that, number 3, across schools. And this, for me, is the biggest leverage point we have in North America that we've barely begun to look at. In the London borough of Hackney, which was the 149th out of 149 school districts in 2002, and by 2012 above the national average, one of the major ways it raised achievement with academies that are like charter schools who are competitive with each other was by requiring the academies to work together and be responsible for each other's success. You compete and you collaborate. Our charters and our regular public schools should compete and collaborate. Our Catholic schools and public schools should compete and collaborate. In the Greater Manchester Challenge in England, where 14 school districts in the region work together, like having Chelsea, Revere, Boston, Somerville, all working together, significantly raising achievement. A Jewish school helped and supported a predominantly Muslim school. A Catholic school prayed for the inspection success of its secular neighbor. Actually, they were successful. Don't knock it. It's so the greatest leverage is how we get this collaboration that is not just networking or sharing. And you'll need to think about funding structures to do this, moving some money from central office into the schools so that people have time to help each other, giving money to the strong schools so they can help the weak schools. That's the paradox of it. But it's one of the biggest leverage points we have. 4. Almost done. In fact, I'll stop after 4, because 4 is enough. But it may be one of the biggest. From continuous improvement to disciplined innovation. Improvement's about the best thing, innovation's about the next thing. Here's the Dyson vacuum cleaner. Wonderfully innovative. It took what everybody else hated, which was dirt, and that they tried to hide, and then it turned dirt into entertainment by putting it in a transparent container and have it whiz round at 400 miles an hour. And some of the men in the room are saying, "What's a Dyson?" So, but it replaced the vacuum cleaner. So it's a wonderful innovation, totally counterintuitive. Totally counterintuitive. How many prototypes did it take to get the Dyson to market? 5,176. If we put a bad Dyson on the market before it's ready, all we get is a heap of dirt. If we put a bad innovation on the market before it's properly tested, we get another heap of dirt that may destroy significant parts of children's minds, a year, a cohort or two, irreversibly. Irreversibly. If you put iPads into a school before people are ready to use them and insist that everybody does it, that it's irreversible and inescapable, it's like having no prototype. It's a massive risk. So we can and should have what Jim Collins calls disciplined innovation. So have a culture of innovation, a culture of innovation, and do not compromise on that. But that culture of innovation should be evidence-based from outside and within the school, trial and error, and then spread when it's refined and we know it's successful. I've raised just 4 things with you today. There were 2 more, but you could always read Uplifting Leadership, Jossie Bass, 2014, or The Global Fourth Way, if you want to look at what we learned from unusually high performance in business, sport, and education from around the world. It is a bold opportunity now. This state has achieved so much in the last 10 years. Everyone in the room should feel enormously proud if you've been part of that. One of the most counterintuitive parts of innovation is to change something when it's successful. Nokia, that was behind the success of Finland, was the first to discover swipe finger technology, but decided it wouldn't go anywhere, so it would stick with the thumb technology. Nokia collapsed because it wanted to sweat more out of its thumb technology rather than make a shift into finger swiping technology. Good and great organizations know how to change something when it's working, know how to innovate and to improve all at the same time. That's our challenge, and that's how the Rennie Center is going to help us the rest of this morning. Thank you.